So today we're celebrating Vesak. I really, for whatever reason, whatever causes and conditions, it was clear to me from the beginning when I was exposed to Buddhism and particularly the Thai forest tradition that I really like Theravada, the Theravada tradition, and part of it is I like that it's not heavy in ceremony. They put the Buddha's birth, his enlightenment, and his death all on the same day. It's all on the same. I mean, how convenient. And the ceremonies are generally very short, sweet, and powerful. So I appreciate that. And usually on Vesak, I talk about, and I'm sure so many other teachers of Buddhism, talk about the conditions around the Buddha's birth and the miracles that occurred and the amazing breakthrough and his enlightenment and what it might have been like, what we're told about his passing away. But today, I think I want to take a different approach. Because the Buddha changed my life, changed the course of my life. And he changed the course of his own life. And that is powerful. And to see, how we all come into this world, and we already come in with a lot of conditioning. I remember, so I have two children, and they're in their, let's see, I think the younger one is going to be 50 this year. And even in utero, they were different. I could tell. My son, the first one, rambunctious right from the start. And the second one, graceful and easy. And they're still like that. And you just see especially with my grandchildren, I could see when they were born, and within the first days, weeks, you could just see that they came in with so much conditioning already. And my mother talked about my brother and me and how different we were from the beginning. And my brother's so calm, so quiet, and I wasn't. She said that she would be like, during the night, she would be holding me because apparently I was up and awake, and she said she would be in the rocking chair and she'd fall asleep, and then she'd wake up and she'd look down, and I'm just staring at her with my big blue eyes. Is this child going to sleep? Yeah. And my brother, he was just so calm, and we passed that on to our children, apparently. I don't know how much you get from your parents, but I was recently thinking of a Christmas dinner that was happening at my parents' house, and there are probably 11 or 12 of us, and we're all sitting around this big dining room table. And my mom loved to decorate. So there are, the evergreen and all this, and candles all down the middle of the table. And my son and my brother's son are sitting next to each other. They're probably around 11, 12 years old at the time. And my brother's son is much like his father. And my son, the rambunctious one, probably takes more after me. And my mom is standing up and she's dishing something out, and her sweater catches the candle. And my nephew says, "Grandma's on fire." And my son jumps up and starts patting it out. It's like their nature. He's just like, "Grandma's on fire," just sit there, calm, super calm. He's probably a great meditator. And and then of course we receive a lot of conditioning. We're all taught the things that are, probably going to help us succeed in the world. What to care about, what to put your effort into. And we develop a lot of attachments. And we develop a strong sense of self. And of course, what brought the Buddha to change the course of, I think about his life, he was educated, prepared for leadership. And, the prediction at his birth was that he would be either a wheel turning monarch, which is a king, a leader that really governs fairly and justly and kindly without force. But, that kind of attraction, like you want to follow this person. Really bringing out the best in people. I know it's the kind of leaders we wish we had more of. And the other alternative was that he would be a Buddha. And so according to the history, and you can really imagine this actually happening, that his parents, especially his father, probably, really grooming him for that first option. Although the Sakyans weren't actually a monarchy, it was probably more like a republic. The leadership was transferred from family to family, apparently, the high-ranking families of the country. Still, the Buddha, before he was a Buddha, was certainly educated and trained in all of the kinds of skills and abilities that were required or possible for someone in that position. And I remember Rajapasano saying once, the Buddha must have seen a lot, saw a lot of what that's like. And then he, of course, in the stories even saw old age and death. So he changed the course of his life. And has changed the course of so many lives as a result. Much more than he could have as a wheel turning monarch, because monarchs come and go, and how much of their legacy actually lasts for a couple thousand years. Not so much, I think. And I think the reason that the Buddhist teachings have lasted, first of all, they're true, they echo, their truth echoes in each of us. Because, it was so, his teaching was so brilliantly done. He made it so clear that this is something that, that the Dhamma is something we each discover ourselves. I never could have done it in this lifetime for sure, without his pointing the way, without the teachings being available to me. And that's what makes him the Buddha, that he did it without that. He could find the Dhamma and understand it, because it's really completely antithetical to what we're conditioned to believe and cherish in the world. The sense of self and the attachments to material possessions and wealth and conventional success, even the values of family, which is probably the highest value most of us have been handed in ordinary conventional reality, to have a good marriage, to have a good family, to be morally upright and generous, kind. Those are good things. But to recognize that there's something beyond that, that even has more abundance in it than anything we can find in the world, is powerful. So when the Buddha taught, and he wasn't setting himself up as the one who gives us salvation or gives us freedom from suffering, but rather to, in every way possible, communicate that this is something we discover ourselves, that we have to know it directly. And so because of that, and also the Vinaya, the organization he created, the way it could be passed down and continue to pass down the knowledge, made it survive. And of course, other religions have also survived from their initiators, probably for some of the similar reasons, that truth is discoverable. So when I think about, the course of my own life, having tried so many things, and with varying degrees of success or not, to recognize how much it's changed, and how, as I see other people making that same transition, I guess I could say, changing their lives, away from trying to gather what's in the world together, all that stuff we have to leave behind when we die, to being more generous, to being more open-handed, shaping up the sila, the moral virtue, and simplifying their lives. To stop looking outwards for the source of suffering, to blame other people and circumstances, but to look inward and to see how we're creating our own suffering because of our conditioned patterns and habits, over and over again, repeating the same situations and changing the course of our life, really understanding ourselves, really understanding dukkha, and letting go of our requirements from other people to a large degree. I mean, there's always the balance there of the importance of, having good boundaries, being with people who are going to be mutually supportive, and dealing with conventional reality in a way that's may not always be nurturing, but at least not so damaging. But the internal shift, the change in the course of our life, away from harboring grievances, or whether we are blaming others or blaming ourselves, letting go of that, starting to recognize that whatever happened in the past, we learn from it and let it go. And when we start to pick up the Buddha's teachings, it can be hard to see what he's really getting at, especially around the sense of self and how to relate to the world. Sometimes I think it kind of goes through a phase of, at first there's this wonderful discovery, especially if we're around people like a monastic sangha or a sangha of lay people who are really diligently practicing, deeply practicing, and you see the benefits of that. So maybe that's where some of us who come to the Dhamma, not growing up in a Buddhist culture, you see the benefits of that, and it's very uplifting and inspiring. But then we start to dig deeper, and I remember one of the people who's been coming here for quite a few years, maybe 8-10 years already, and was here again last night, said to me at one point, so is the Buddha saying that we should just let go of our involvement in the world of our, that basically what he was saying is to not cling to anything in the world, and just like entirely immerse yourself into the practice. And there's a part of you at some period, there's a part that's like, no, I don't want to, like, is that really what the Buddha's saying? All of this stuff in the world is just junk, and we're just reject it all. And it can, for some people, it feel pretty bleak at that point. But then at whatever point we start to recognize the beauty and the peacefulness of truly seeing conventional reality for what it is, and the joy and the benefit, the inspiration and nourishment of true contentment and peace. How stabilizing and consistently, nourishing, beneficial, beautiful the Dhamma is. And so listening to teachers, and it's kind of like the listening to teachers that are saying, let go of the sense of self, relinquish the sense of self. I know for some people, maybe for you, it can be really hard to see how to do that. And where does, what's left when you do that? But as we do it, then we discover what's really there. And then the ability to actually be content and happy without things necessarily going the way you want them to go. And when the Buddha had those insights into the Dhamma, really, really seeing how suffering ends, not because conventional reality changes, it's not because there's an end to disease and loss and pressure and strain and tension and anxiety and all of that. Not that there's an end to the problems in life, but because we've let go internally. So they say that on the night of his enlightenment, all of the things that can tempt you, beautiful people that you might be attracted to, or wealth, or a power, all those things that might lure someone into immersion in worldly life, came to disturb him, to tempt him. And he was like, oh no, I'm good. And that's what happens, with us. And it's then possible to really offer something to the people around us that makes an impact, a positive encouragement. And sometimes people who are raised in Buddhist cultures don't really see the full range of what the Buddha taught either. Actually, any religious culture, I saw it in, when I was raised in Protestant Christianity. There are people who really, really live the religion, and they're beautiful. And when I say that, I mean, it's not the part about trying to convert everyone, but the part about how you live according to those principles of loving your neighbor and loving what's holy. And there are, many times people are just kind of going through the motions. You go to church services and you're really thinking about something else. You're not really paying attention. You're not really, it's your social life. And I've heard this from people who've grown up in Buddhist countries. We had one person who came to the vihara I was in when I was in training as an anagarika. And he was so excited about the Buddhist teachings. He grew up in Sri Lanka, but he said, I never heard this. I was at work and they did a mindfulness seminar, and now I get it. I'm really excited about this. And he said, I just, never, it was all sort of this sort of cultural Buddhism. And so it's like, whatever our exposure, whatever's around us, it can help us go deeper, but sometimes we just aren't ready. We don't see it, until the suffering in life forces us to look for something more substantial, more real, more direct. And when we start to see that it's not just our temporary comfort that we want, but our true awakening, to the Dhamma. So what's it like when the Dhamma is really the basis of our life? Like Ajahn Gana says, relinquish the sense of self. Don't take the sense of self as the basis for your life. Take the Dhamma as the basis for your life, for all the things you do. So the sense of self is pretty insidious. It really kind of like affects and the ego tries to appropriate everything for its own purposes. Any kind of goodness, any good action we do, if we still believe in the sense of self, there's going to be a bit of a coloration there or a discoloration there. And so when, Ajahn Gana says, just do good for the sake of goodness, then of course there still might be thoughts of wanting some kind of somebody to notice or wanting some kind of something in return. And all we have to do is be aware of it. The mindfulness can is like, oh, look at that. No, I don't want that. And just really purifying our intentions, purifying our conditioning in a way, being aware of what our conditioning is. Oh yeah. But without that self-recrimination that can come up, or when that comes up, that also is like, oh, look at that. It's okay. I'm not going that way anymore, kind of feeling. And things change when we do that. It changes. We start to recognize, to feel what it feels like to think and speak and act for the sake of goodness, in line with Dhamma, and not looking for anything else. It's a process because the conditioning is so strong. A lot of times when we're not paying attention, when we're not being mindful, when we're not investigating, we can find ourselves acting the way we saw our parents act a long time ago. I always thought about that as a parent. When you really feel like you've tried everything, your back is against the wall, you might say, then what comes out is, like what the examples were for you when you were growing up. And sometimes it's something you don't want at all. You don't want to do at all. So, like regardless of how we notice, whether we notice ourselves doing something, saying something, pondering on something that we now can recognize as not helpful, not illuminating, not going in the right direction. And all we need to do is bring that mindfulness to it and just say, I want to do this differently. I'm going to let go of this. And it's not, it doesn't really happen through an act of will. We were talking about this a bit last night in Sutta study. It's not an act of will that causes us to let go. It's all of the factors of the Eightfold Path. Our regular meditation practice, our development of our virtue, our development of generosity, our observance, our witnessing, what we experience, how we think, what our conditioning has been. And to not, if blame comes up, if self-recrimination comes up, being present with that as well, and any layer that we find coming in, that we can stop be present and aware of that. But if we find ourselves trying to defend our habits or defend our position or trying to show up as the one that knows everything or knows better than others, we're probably going to stay stuck for a while. And I think it's so it's so important that we cultivate the humility to really look at ourselves and to practice how to do that without recrimination, without blame, with discernment, but not a kind of judging mind. That makes sense. Knowing what's helpful, what's not helpful, what's in alignment with Dhamma and what isn't, but not with the kind of critical, blaming mind. So the Buddha spent 45 years walking barefoot in India, teaching to all different kinds of people. He taught the people who were considered to be at the bottom of the social ladder all the way to the most wealthy, the most prominent, the most powerful. And he taught them the same thing. How to see through the illusion of this sense of self and the world, conventional reality, how to replace ignorance with wisdom, understanding, knowing. How do we vitalize that in ourselves by becoming still and receptive, really listening? How to see it in nature, how nature works, how that our body is part of nature, not something we own or we are. It's so freeing to let go of attachment to the body. Somebody asked on the retreat last week how to let go of, can't remember exactly how the question was worded, but how to let go of this anxiety around trying to look beautiful. They talked about this kind of pressure of, having to look young or beautiful. And, there is so much of that in our society. And I talked about, I happened to answer that question in the Q&A period, and said try to spend time with people who don't hold that as such a high value. And just happened to think of my Aunt Jean, who, like, my mother really cared about her appearance and was really anxious about it and spent a lot of time relatively with it. And her sister, my Aunt Jean, was the opposite. And when she was in her 50s, she fell through a glass door and her face was really cut up. And almost immediately the plastic surgeon was talking about, fixing it. And she's like, no, if people don't want to look, if people don't like how I look, they don't have to look. And I always really admired my Aunt Jean, and I'm like, oh yeah. But then about 3 months or so later, I saw her. We didn't live nearby, but we were getting together for a family thing, and I'm like, oh my God, her face really looks bad. But she didn't care. She had no attachment to it. Really interesting. So counter to, and it wasn't like she didn't care about anything. I mean, she was clean and brushed her hair, it wasn't like, she wasn't that abnormal, but to not care about what people think about how you look. And so I was saying to this person, you can surround yourself with people who hold this sort of ideal of how we're supposed to appear in the world as very important, and put a lot of energy into that. And whoever we're hanging around with we're going to get affected by that. Or you could, see about being around people who have a different view of it. Less worried about aging, less worried about appearance. And I have to say, after years passed, you couldn't tell that she fell through a glass door. The skin healed. But we really, any of these kinds of things, just notice in yourself, and what am I attached to? What do I care about? I also suggested that I do try not to be too disgusting, having stuff in my teeth, or stuff coming out of my nose, like I don't want to like disgust people. But how much does it matter about, whether there's wrinkles or, whether there's whatever natural thing happens to this body, it's not ours. When my son, as you know, he was a monk for quite a while, and then when he decided to stop being a monk, it's kind of hard after you've spent from ages like 24 to 39 in robes. That's usually the time you make a career, or you find a partner, or you have a family. And then at that age, you're kind of like starting over. And the rambunctious one, a lot of energy. So he threw himself into, he had finished college before he became a monk, so that was helpful, but he threw himself into getting a master's degree and developing what he needed to do to have a livelihood. And he also was looking for a partner. And we had a conversation that turned out to be pretty pivotal for him, because he was dating people, and I'm like, these people do not fit him. It's like, and I said to him, you need to find someone you really, really respect, someone you just think is awesome, really, on so many levels, her virtue and her creativity and her whatever, is her goodness. He said, there's one person that I met, just one person I could put in that category. And then he contacted her, and they started talking, and she is very beautiful. And she said to him, well, if you're interested in the way I look, forget it, because that's going to change. Yes, she's the one. They did wind up getting married, and they're quite happy. And she understands the Dhamma, and she's a good person. And it's a real challenge being a human being living in this world and balancing the interface with the world, and developing in the Dhamma, but we can do it. And the interface to the world gets easier. It's easier to take the broad look at the news and go, yeah, that's just the constantly repeated story of insanity. And I'll do what I can to try to influence as best as possible in a good direction. But then let it go. Because hearing the same story over and over again isn't going to help us. And I mean, if you take the broad view, it doesn't matter what the content looks like, it's still the same BS story. People trying to be rich and famous and powerful, all the things the Buddha warned the monastics against. It's like, don't go down that road. It's a real dead end or a hard crash into the wall. And it is possible to walk through this world and not be of the world. And love really without conditions. So I think I'll stop there, and I'd love to hear your questions or comments or thoughts on celebrating the Buddha's life.
Adrian had a comment in the chat that I thought was fun.
Want to read it?
Today I heard someone say my body is the least interesting thing about me. It's like,
yeah. It's a useful tool. It can cause us a lot of trouble. But for the most part, while we have it, we need to take care of it and try to use it for good. I had the lovely experience this week. My granddaughter graduated from high school. She was co-valedictorian with 28 other people. It's a very high pressure academic school. But yeah, she's set to go to UC Berkeley for college. And the refrain from her mother for her and me too is use your powers for good. You know, whatever it is that brings us to whatever situation we have, there are causes and conditions. There's no point in trying to find blame or excuses or claim it as something we own or are, and whatever benefits we have, use it for good. So we'll keep encouraging that. James.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for the talk. I've got to say the almost definition of the news as constantly repeated story of insanity, I think is one of the best definitions I've ever heard. So I think I'm going to keep that in mind next time I'm seeing something crazy in the news. But I try and avoid it when I can. I think that's wise. But it's beautiful talk, inspiring and uplifting as always. That idea is the Dharma as basis of life, as something that it's not just something you do in your spare time or something. It's something you do all the time, basically. Yeah. And how you say about how it's not as an act of will; it's just putting those pieces in place. And I'm in a chat with a few other sort of Buddhists, and I think one in particular kind of doesn't quite understand that. He has it in that little kind of compartment. This is my Buddhist practice, and you know what I mean. And there just seems to be, I don't know, isn't it weird how it's not really something you do, it's something you become. It's just something that you just follow what wise teachers tell you, and you just implement, and it just sort of slowly sort of gathers momentum, doesn't it? And you just find yourself doing things and being things, and you know, being Dhamma without even realizing it sometimes, and you kind of notice in hindsight later on, you'd be like, oh, well, previously I'd be this way and sort of that way. So it's something I love about it, because it just sort of crept up on me quite early on, and I just suddenly one day noticed things had changed somehow, but for the good, really.
Yeah.
So it is awesome, definitely. But I guess what I was going to ask is, got any more dating tips? Because that was a pretty good one that you gave to your son. I know it's perhaps not quite within the area, probably not what you intended, but
Oh, that's so cute.
or should I just stay away? Is that just too many pitfalls?
No, I used to really like the jokes that monastics would sometimes tell about, like, what are you thinking getting getting together with someone else? You've already got 5 khandhas to deal with. You really want 10? It's like, what? you know. But over the years, I've really seen people come together and support each other in the Dhamma in ways that really help the development. So I think the dating tips fall into the category of, 5 precepts is a requirement. And if someone really is an earnest practitioner, they don't even have to be Buddhist necessarily, but really in line with the Dhamma and encouraging and caring. Really, the ability to care about someone else, not just ourselves. And then, those things that are, part of conventional reality, like how to spend, things about money and things about sex and things about values and spending. All those things have to match to some degree. So it can feel a little like there's a needle in the haystack,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's worth and it's worth the effort to be discerning about it. And it's also karmic to some degree, like wishing to have a partner, and maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't happen. Being content and happy in ourselves is really good. And if someone comes into our life, there's this fit, there's this feeling, there's this beautiful mutual support in being good, in developing in a good way, then it's worth it.
Thank you. It's good tips, definitely. But yeah, needle in a haystack, needle in a stack full of haystacks, more like, I think.
Could be. But there are a lot of good people out there. Don't you worry.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll get to meet them sooner or later. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Welcome. Yes, Jarell and Nina.
Okay. Yeah, hi. We haven't met, but I've heard a lot about this space. So I'm Jarrell's partner, and occasionally I'm overhearing from the kitchen these mornings. But Jarrell and I have talked about me joining. So thank you for having me. And I was really drawn to the inquiry that I've had about ego as it pertains to circumstances where you're not able to choose who you're around with in certain environments. And for me, for instance, with work and, um, wanting to move in alignment with that practice of resolving ego and kind of moving from this place that I really want to, but then finding other people's ego contagious and trying to allow it to like catch me and pull me in. And I feel like a really hard challenge in my practice as it goes from day to day. And I'm curious, what mindfulness or what approach to staying in alignment you might have for that circumstance.
Yeah, yeah. Well, first of all, welcome, Nina. It's very nice to meet you.
Yeah, thank you.
And that is a really good question. And it's interesting. First of all, you're right on that we need to strengthen our mindfulness and really be aware. First thing to be aware of is, what are my own values? To be really clear about how we want to be in this world, because our personality changes all the time. Don't think, oh, I am the way I am, because there is no set way we are. Actually, the people that I know who want to stay the same, it's a really takes a lot of effort to try to stay the same. But that's not really so we get to shape the development of this character, even though it's all kind of amorphous. And being clear about what our own values are and how we want to show up in the world with that goodness, with that generosity, with that kindness, with that authenticity. And then the mindfulness of those energies that we pick up. So I had it recently. What was coming up in me was this kind of competitive feeling of competition, which is not very strong in me at all. So I can kind of feel that it's coming from somewhere else. So you might notice that, like, you're at work and you're feeling you know that this is this other someone else's focus or their thing or what they're feeling. And you're right, we're so affected by these things. We're kind of like tuning forks. Have you ever like had the thing where there's two tuning forks and you hit one and the other one starts to vibrate? It's so weird, right? But this is how we are as human beings. We really are affected by our surroundings and the people around us. And so to be mindful of it, to say, oh, I'm feeling this energy that's competitive or angry or blaming or stingy or whatever it is. And then, to be clear with it, like, I'm not going to take this on. I'm not going to behave in that way. And, by making that clear in ourselves, it's very likely that we won't take it on or behave in that way. And then when we can leave that situation, we want to be with people. Sometimes it's helpful if you can like talk to Jarell about it, or, sometimes it's helpful to talk about it too. It makes things more solid for us. I find sometimes I can be thinking about something and it doesn't feel very strong, but when I speak about it, it comes out much more strong. I feel it arise more. And so just letting that energy come through in a good way, not from a place, just from a neutral space, but letting it, letting yourself see it and be with it. And surround yourself by people with values that you want to that you have and want to develop. So the Buddha has said, if there's someone who has more wisdom than you have, like emulate them, spend time with them, emulate them. The same with generosity. If there's someone who's more generous than you are, spend time with them, emulate that. And also with faith and also with virtue, like see those good qualities in the people around us and really put an emphasis on, I want to be more like that. Mm-hmm. And, we can't, we don't want to hide from the world or not be, solid enough in ourselves to be able to be around other people. I've seen this happen sometimes with people who are diving deep into meditation and then they don't want to be around anyone. Mm-hmm. They kind of want to isolate, and it's not good. I mean, the Buddha required that the monastics actually engage with other human beings every day if they want to eat. It's like, we're supposed to be able to be able to interface in the world and see it for what it is, and bring a positive feeling and a positive intention. And one of the things that I've found very effective, like if you're in a situation where people are expressing their opinions and it's very counter to what you believe or what you feel, one thing you can always say is, I don't believe that. Mm-hmm. It's just you saying, like, I don't believe that, or I don't feel that way. It's like, and they can pick it up or they don't have to, but you're not fighting with them. Don't argue with people. Mm-hmm. Recently heard someone said that Katharine Hepburn said, don't complain and don't explain. I think it's pretty good advice in general.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that perspective. And obviously, I'm very lucky to have someone in my life who is also an extension of a space like this to ground myself in that. So I hope to come more often. My cat is here too, so we might have three of us.
Yeah, fabulous.
Where did you find Nina? James needs to go there.
I know, James. I've heard
more dating advice.
I've heard you speak many a time, and whoever ends up being that special person is going to be very lucky, James.
Yes. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So true. Mm. Yeah, thank you. Kathleen.
Um, I've been thinking about this, sharing this throughout the talk and other people's comments, and not really sure how to frame it. But I think the most resonant way is in response to how you started the talk today about just celebrating how the Buddha has changed our lives. And I know my story comes from a place of excessive privilege, even though my life didn't start out that way. I managed to go to medical school, which is, it is going to lead you in a place where you're going to be, have a lot of options, right? And it was a painful decision to decide to limit what I was doing when I was graduating school. And I decided to become a radiologist, which I loved for so many ways. I felt so strongly about how I was able to use it to help my patients. And it just felt like it was a really important path. But it changed while I was practicing it. And in a moment not a moment, a extended crisis, somebody introduced me to Jack Kornfield and the Buddhist teaching, um, and I decided to go back and do a second residency, which, if anybody knows anything about what that means, it's a lot of work, and you're like an indentured servant. And I became a psychiatrist, which I know also has a lot of stigma in our society, but it afforded me the opportunity to be able to sit with people and to really listen to them. And I think for me, that was one of the things that really resonated with me early on in my experience of the Dharma was the ability to really be present with another human, and how rare a gift that really is. And when we can do that for somebody else, just how important that is. And so, I mean, obviously the Buddha's changed my life because I've found the Dharma, but he also really changed my career path and the way I've been able to impact the people that I care for. And I just have so much gratitude for that. And so thank you for the framing of the opportunity to celebrate it that way. Thank you.
Beautiful. So where do you practice, Kathleen?
In Connecticut.
Okay.
And I was biting my tongue before because I wanted to say that I was looking forward to October, where I will see you at the Barry Center for Buddhist Studies.
All right, good. Excellent. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I see some people as they're aging become more materialistic, more frantic to maintain their comfort, more likely to go into conspiracy thinking, and it's like, it's such a sad, such a sad track. And I really want to strongly encourage us at any age, at any part of life, to change our lives for the better, for those values that the Buddha really encouraged: humility and frugality and simplicity and generosity, kindness, virtue. And like I said before, all of those components, the Buddha taught over and over again about, generosity, sila, samadhi, and panya, to really, weave all of it into our life and avoid getting kind of hung up on any part of it. Sometimes people feel like, oh, I'm just not making any progress. You see this in monastics sometimes. They've been in the robes for, even 15 or 20 years. And then it's like, I feel like I haven't gotten anywhere. May as well give this up. Some of them do give it up. But maybe their conditioning isn't suitable for the technique that's being taught where they are isn't suitable for their own conditioning or something like that. To be able, we're so blessed now to be able to hear from different practitioners who have taken this all the way to the end or very close to the end, to see that there are different approaches. It's in the suttas, but we may not recognize that, what is your mind, what does your heart need in the practice for it to develop, and not to buy into those negative views and opinions we might have of ourselves. Because the Dhamma is right here. We can realize this. We need to honestly investigate and really look at, where am I, like I said before, where am I doing something with a little shadow of an ulterior motive, or, like really, really investigate, really be willing to look and allow the Dhamma to work on us. Because it will. We just have to open our heart. Another thing that I mentioned at the retreat last week was, at one point during the winter retreat this year, just asking the Buddha, the Arahants, and the Devas to help me go forward. And I said, it's not like I think I can talk to the Buddha, but it opens the heart. It aligns the heart with those beautiful qualities and values, and to open the heart for the input to receive the guidance, the encouragement. Never let any kind of pattern of discouragement that we might have been conditioned to carry rule. Don't allow it. Peg?
Two things came to mind. One was when you were talking about your children. I had twins, and I can testify that you come into the world with lots of conditioning. From the moment they were born, it was like they were going in two different directions. It teaches you a lot about, and they are still so much the people they are now. And that came with them. And the other thing, which sort of relates glancingly to a number of things you said, one is to do with intention. When I was in my 30s, I just noticed people who were my age who were becoming increasingly like their parents and hardening into certain patterns and attitudes. And I had been exposed in a very brief way to Buddhism at that point. And that's when I started to explore it, because I thought, I don't want to do that. I don't want to let certain patterns solidify. I want to be aware of them. And even now, I can talk about all the ways in which my practice is not what it should be, or I have not developed to the point where any of this is the case, that I can just let go of patterns. At least I feel like I can sometimes see them. And, that's hugely helpful. So and I'm very grateful. I haven't had a dramatic life event that changed, but I think of where I might be if I hadn't started, and that's encouraging.
Yes, yes, yes. It's a good reflection. Yes. And we do gradually and abruptly change. It's like it can happen both ways. And um, to recognize that there's no one perfect way that we walk the path. It's more, I really love when Ajahn Mahabua said, just take what you've got and scramble up the mountain. Like don't don't think that you're lacking something essential. You really already have it.
Thank you.
Yeah, Peg is reminding me, we were in the car dropping someone off who's interested in ordaining, and she was asking what she should do. Like, it might take some time for her to find somewhere to ordain. And she's like, did you, like, between the time you were Mahayana nun and you became a Theravada nun, did you like take carpentry classes or like learn how to do practice, like do some kind of training, so it's like more valuable for a monastery to be like wanting to ordain you, like invite you in? I was like, no, it's like for me it's like 90% just willingness to do stuff, and like 5% ability, 5% dumb luck. And but like 100% being able to try it and fail, like being okay with failing. And so like Dhamma practice is kind of like that, all it really takes is like just keep trying. And I know you've been trying for a long time, Peg. I'm like really sincere. So I'm not worried about you at all. Go, Peg, go. Keep going. It's working. It's working. Yeah.
Yeah, those are the friends we need, the ones who can remind us of how much we've changed. That's a very valuable, especially as we get older, service that we can offer to the people we've known for a long time. Like, I've seen you blossom. I've watched it happen. I know you've got it in you to take this as far as you want to. And sometimes when people take a wrong turn, we can remind them that you have this in you too. You can come out of this spin you've gotten yourself into. Yes, Ling.
Thank you, Ayya. And just a little comment. I also love Theravada tradition, and because not many huge ceremony, long time talk. I definitely feel today's talk is very speak to my heart as well, and I only found true Buddhism when I came to Europe. Born in Buddhist country, surrounded by temples. I never knew anything about Four Noble Truths. I definitely saw a lot of suffering, and but finding the true
Buddhism when I come to here. And like I mentioned, the day when I heard Ajahn Brahm talk about the highest happiness is peace, I really, really felt that was all I was looking for my life. I went totally wrong way before. So yeah, Buddha definitely changed the course of my life. I'm very grateful to meet you and this Sangha as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. One of the beautiful things about getting older is that when we look back, we can really feel the gratitude for all the people who have helped us. And, for our parents, we certainly can't really understand what they put into our life until later. When we've seen more of the way life is. And teachers and those people in the world who are really making it a better place, the people who have had a positive impact on us, the people who have been demonstrating virtuous good qualities. Yeah, using their powers for good. Kind of a period of time after having a good job, having raising in kind of most of the way through raising my kids, I was still searching for meaning. I was around a lot of people who had a strong interest in gaining material things, wealth, and honors of various kinds. And I just kept thinking about what really matters. What is it for? Like what's gonna last? And my conclusion was in alignment with none of it lasts. It's like, and yeah, just so grateful to find the Dhamma. But that kind of inquiry is the same kind of inquiry we still want to be doing, but in the light of the Dhamma. What are we doing with our time? What preferred opinions and attitudes are we still harboring? Have we really looked at the nature of duality and seeing the illusion of it. I mean, whether we've seen glimpses of it or not, to recognize that Nibbana is not dualistic. Our true nature is not this better or worse or right and wrong, black and white. It's not bound by time. That the dualistic way of seeing, which is embedded in all language, which is part of, it's just the water we're swimming in, is an illusion. It causes this kind of discrimination of what's better, what's worse. It causes the swings between good and awful. The unavoidable rising and falling of everything. And the only purpose of time is to, kind of make sense of reality, make sense of this conventional reality, to keep track of our moments till death. Time is part of the illusion, and the thinking mind can't go past it. It can't imagine what timelessness is. It can't make sense of it. But when we see it, when we experience the truth of time being just a convention, yeah, we know that this reality is such a amazing and insane kind of context, constantly changing. So to touch into those, touch into or realize and know that our true nature is none of that, is not coming and going, arising and ceasing. It's not anxious, restless. It's peace, contentment. It's cool and loving. And the way to it is mindfulness. To really see that excuse me, that is the gate to the deathless, to that peaceful, cool, consistent, loving truth. We have to stop and be present in order for that to become apparent to us. And we can all do that. Letting go of everything. So that's what the Buddha gave us. The pointer, the encouragement, the framework, the tradition. Thank you.